Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar on designing STEP Warmfloor with floor coverings and insulation. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is our third webinar in a series of 4. Just to remind you that we did have the features and benefits of STEP Warmfloor and the applications, and you can view those on our website at heatmyfloors.com. I invite you to look back at those and refresh, or perhaps if you're joining us for the first time, you can look back on those and kind of catch up with this. We'll get started. And for those who are just new, we just say Heat My Floors. We're a division of Wright Hennepin Electric Cooperative, so we're an electric utility that distributes electric radiant floor heating products since 1996. And we're located in Twin Cities area, just west of the Twin Cities. I'd say about 30 miles west of downtown Minneapolis. So it kind of gives a little perspective of where we are. As you can see, we're in the tundra of the United States, a cold area, and it's about on our doorstep. So we're getting very busy with STEP Warmfloor. So it's a good, exciting time for us. Myself, I'm your host today, and again, Dennis Schramel, and Heat My Floors product manager. And I've been here for 22 years and trained many electrical, HVAC, and remodeling contractors regarding this unique STEP Warmfloor product. Yeah, just to give you one reminder too, and this will be at the end of the presentation slideshow here, is that we're having the final webinar on installation, wiring, and controls on December 11th at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. 7 p.m. I'm sorry. And so they're going to learn how to install the elements and think about placing of the transformers and controls. So we'll put this slide up here a little bit later and keep us on schedule. So the thing is with STEP Warmfloor's design tips is really, hopefully you've got an understanding on the previous webinars of how the system operates. We talked about the features and benefits, how we can sell that to your customer. We talked about the application. So it helps to fully understand the system and what it can do. So it's more than just floor warming heating system. It's actually can provide a primary heat source for your commercial or residential building. We want you to make sure you stay involved with, communicate to the entire design team. And that involves electrician or the tile contractor, flooring contractor, to the builder, and obviously the homeowner. We want to make sure everybody knows because the product involves so many different facets of the industry. It's not only just electrician, but it's also the floor covering guy. So it really helps to communicate that on the job site. It's going to make your job go easier too. And lastly, you got to remember, heat goes to cold. And there's a purpose for that, and that's to insulate, which we're going to segue right into. So insulation is the key to performance, and I kind of call it the fuel that your customer only pays for once. So if you can insulate the home anytime, we are going to have you do so, because insulating is not going to help. It's going to help improve the performance of the heating system, regardless if it's STEP Warmfloor, maybe it's another product. Remember this, is that heat always migrates to cold. This way the insulation assures that that heat moves only in that direction. If we don't insulate, we're going to be running higher electrical costs and have that maybe a problem with not meeting the customer's expectations because the room is cooler than they thought. Always add insulation if there's opportunity. So it's going to be play a critical role in determining expected results. So anytime there's a void down below, let's say it's a bathroom floor, and you have a room that you can gain access down below, make sure you always insulate that. Either do it today or do it relatively soon so your customer can fully expect the comfort level of STEP Warmfloor or other products out there, but particularly STEP Warmfloor. It's going to play a big role in allowing that heat to transfer up and not let it go down. Another important thing for insulation is on slab-on-grade applications, or particularly walkout applications, is if you can get perimeter insulation installed all the better. The system, again, is going to perform because heat's going to move equally in all directions, and heat always goes to cold. So if you can create a barrier there between the STEP Warmfloor and the concrete slab, or perhaps adding insulation underneath a wood subfloor to direct the heat upward, we always are going to stress to do so. So this slide here is a little cumbersome to look at, but I just want to kind of give you this is found in the Radiant System Guide, where you can look at different floor coverings and subfloors. So Radiant Panel Association offers this guide, and you might find some of this online through different web searches, or Google it, and you'll find these slides. But I just want to pay attention to wood subfloors. They really have a low R value of 0.825, so that's not a great deal amount of heat to direct upwards. It's very low R value, and some contractors may feel, well, you got a wood subfloor and the space is heated down below. Well, that's good, but if we can do it better, the system is going to perform, and your customer is going to have lower energy bills. So this chart looks a little cumbersome, but you may study it on your own sometime when you look at the slides, or we can send you a copy of the guide too upon your request. It's a Radiant Panel Association's floor covering on comparative R values, just as you see it here. So insulating the subfloor is critical. Really, there's two methods. I mean, you're going to do insulate above the subfloor, which I'm going to cover, or you're going to insulate like the picture here shows below the subfloor. So again, if you can add insulation below, do so. And here we're just, the contractor's just adding some insulation with some rolled fiberglass. So simple to do. The key to this is to leave no air gaps. You want that element, or that fiberglass, touching right to the element. But there's key things on that fiberglass, and I'll cover it, I think, in the next couple of slides, is that you do not want to use foil-faced insulation, because that can short out the semiconductive heating element. So make sure you use just full, like a craft-faced fiberglass. Another insulation panel that we use and we're quite fond of is called Cerazorb. And Cerazorb is pretty unique. It's easy to put down. It's a self-adhesive quarter-inch insulation. So it's 4 foot by 4 foot, so 16 square feet. But it's only 3/16 of an inch thick. So very nice way to provide insulation to a floor without raising a lot of floor heights. And as you can see there, the weight's about 5 pounds. Guys will like using this, and I'll cover the rolled cork here in a little bit, but they like this because it's easier to put down. One thing I need to caution you, if you ever use Cerazorb, is that once you stick it, it's stuck. I mean, it has some good adhesives on the back of it to really bond to the concrete floor. What they do recommend, though, is that you put a vapor paint if the floor may have some moisture on it. But basically, the Cerazorb is a synthetic cork product, so it will not support any mold or mildew, and it's a perfect application to use under engineered or laminate wood floors, or as well as underneath carpet, to prevent the heat from going down, especially, let's say it was on a concrete slab, and then the element would go on top of the Cerazorb as shown on this picture, and then the carpet or laminate floor may be put on top of it. So it can be used for tile applications as well. Some contractors, particularly tile contractors, may not feel that they're concerned about the bonding of the Cerazorb underneath. But the manufacturer assures me that many of the applications they do, they thin set the Cerazorb in, and they thin set on top of it to set tiles. So interesting way, but we sell a lot of this product, Cerazorb. Another one that might be more readily available where you live is cork insulation. And cork basically it's rarely available. It comes in 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch thickness, and the sheets are going to be in a roll of 4 feet by 50 foot long or by 100 foot long. And many of your flooring stores will handle this. They may not have it in stock, but they can get it pretty quickly. Now, not all cork products out there are alike. One that I know we recognize out there, and I believe the manufacturer as well, is called WECU, or WECU. So if you did a Google search for cork insulation, WECU is a great product out there. And many of the floor dealers are going to cover it. But it adds a great thermal insulation over concrete floors or over unheated spaces to, again, we're trying to enhance efficiency and comfort for the customer. Recommendation: under carpet, under laminate wood floors. The product is will not hold moisture, and it's a great product. It's basically a renewable product, because cork will continue. You can strip cork off a tree and continue to use it year after year. So it's a nice nice product to use as a radiant floor insulation barrier. Pro panel, as you see, there's just a top portion of the pro panel. You can see the element laying on top of it, and I believe that picture is not a tile application where mostly we see pro panel being used. But what I want to caution you on is notice the spacing here. I'm going to run my my mouse across here, but that spacing is a little bit too wide. So this most likely is going to be a laminate wood floor, and perhaps this was on a concrete to give added insulation over maybe cork or Cerazor. As you can see from the slide there, the panel is basically like your cement board. It's a 3x5 panel. It's 1/4 inch thickness typically, so it gives you about a 1.15 R value. They're lightweight. They're only 6 pounds. And so contractors will typically use this for tile or floor, or I'm sorry, wall or floor tile applications. But like I said earlier here, is that some may need more of an insulation barrier that tile and or Cerazor or cork cannot get up to the 2.3 R value as 1/2 inch pro panel. So basically it meets the industry standards as a typical cement board. Much lighter, so lugging this up a flight of stairs is easier than hauling those heavy cement backer units, so that are out there. But you basically would bond it to the floor using a modified thin set mortar. So you just trowel it in and use your 1/4 inch notch trowel, cement that, bond that to the floor, and then your element is instead set it on top. And we'll show you more on that as we get to the tile section of this presentation. So insulation for concrete slab applications, there is a couple out there. The most popular one would be the one on your right, the extruded polystyrene. It's readily available. It's going to come in a variety of thicknesses. R10 is typically going to be 2 inches in thickness, but you can get 1.5, and perhaps if you're in the southern United States area, an R5 is going to be take care of the performance that you need, versus up here where we got colder temperatures, the R10 or 2 inch polystyrene that gives us a little bit more thermal performance for insulation. The other one is on the left again is the barrier, and this is what the manufacturer used when I showed you the applications in the previous webinar. It's a very strong and durable rollout type of insulation blanket, if you will. It has various R values on it, and you might find that readily available in some lumber yards, probably can get it, but your extruded polystyrene is one that's going to be readily available at pretty much any a big box store or local lumber yard that you have. So those are the two. There might be some more out there, but those are the two that we see most. Now here's that radiant flooring guide, and we're going to get into the floor covering side of it, and that's what the this is the 2010 edition, and they, I believe, update this every couple of years. So it's a great reference out there to use, and I strongly encourage you to locate that on the web. There's electronic versions out there, but it's a great way for those who don't know much about radiant floor heating. You can get a good education on the hydronic or wet systems to electric systems, and then as well as all the floor coverings. So I strongly urge you to page through one of these. It really gives you a better perspective of radiant floor heating and the effect of floor coverings. Floor coverings, it's really overlooked in radiant system designs, and I'm not talking just about STEP Warmfloor, also hydronic water or cable systems. So a lot of people maybe take for granted that, okay, it's going to go, I'm going to go have this radiant system, put it on the carpet. Will it perform the same as tile or vice versa? So we really need to understand what floor covering is going to go over it, especially when we design the system for you and your client. Floor covering really affects heat transfer. So as you get a chance looking at that radiant flooring guide, you know, obviously by walking on a tile floor that that's cooler and than that walking on a carpeted floor, because the effect they change, their heat transfer rate through them is much different. Of course, tile being much cooler is going to transfer heat right through, versus carpet. You have some insulation value there that's going to retain heat, but is going to also take more energy to drop and through the carpet pad and carpet. So we want to understand floor coverings, but also we got to understand R values. And I'm not trying to teach you here to be a radiant floor guru designer guy. I'm just trying to kind of give you a perspective of different floor coverings have different R values, and that is going to be the key to designing the system. So the element really spacing guidelines is determined here on floor warming is what I'm going to refer this to. Tile applications is typically 1 to 2.5 inches, and that's what we like to recommend here at Heat My Floors. I know some of the publications may say 1 to 3, but I think 3 inches gets you just a little bit too far spacing, where I'm concerned about a striping effect that you could have across the floor where your customer may feel the space in between that. But especially if you're into typically a 1 to 2.5 inch spacing and insulating the floor, that's going to perform perfectly for you. You can see that the wood spacing is typically about 3 to 5 inches, as opposed to carpet spacing can be anywhere from 1 to 8 inches. We see carpet typically about 5 inch spacing. And vinyl, or your resilient flooring out there, is going to be basically the same as wood floor spacing. So here I'm talking about the spacing between the elements. This is kind of a guideline to follow. And if you follow this guideline, you're going to be great with tile. Now what's going to be different with these spacing is one thing, and I'm wondering if any of you are guessing it. If this is a space heating application, then these guidelines are used, but we may need to put the element closer together to meet the heat performance or meet the heat loss design. So even though I said that the carpet space is typically 5 inches, but if that did not meet the required heat loss, then the design needs to tighten up the spacing so we can get more watt density into the floor to properly heat the building as a primary heat source. So keep that in mind, and this will just give you a nice guideline on how to determine, distance of elements. And one thing you can do is when you're out on a job, and you can always, on the edges of the walls, that's where you can move the element inward, because people aren't walking the edges of their home. They're typically in the middle portions of it. But again, if you're a primary heat source, then we need to follow the guidelines that we set when we design the system for you. And a side note is that the elements should never touch another. Because they're semiconductive, make sure they're spacing in between, at least a minimum of 1 inch spacing. To kind of give you an idea, to reiterate this point and drive this home, is this picture here kind of gives you a typical bathroom layout with a good 2.5 inch spacing. And so visually, you can kind of get an idea, but if I were to change this, and let's say this is how it's designed and the contractor got this much element to do the job, but let's say he didn't do one element, and look how it changes the spacing. Now this is a little drastic there on these bottom ones. I'll show you here. I'll get my mouse. This is a little drastic here. but you can see our spacing's probably been in the 3 to 4 inch space. It's inconsistent. And this would be what I determine, and we would determine as a striping effect, where you can have good coverage in certain areas, but in areas where it's wider, you're going to feel that colder striping effect. So you got to be careful about spacing that. Stick to the guidelines. You're going to be great. You're going to good heating performance for the system. Now notice there is no element up here on the top, and basically this is a voided area. And this customer actually had a heat vent, but obviously the system, they came to us for floor heating, and that the forced air heating was not adequate to provide heating for the house or for this bathroom. So kind of give you an idea. You just got to keep those guidelines in mind, and basically when the systems are designed, those things are designed based on that floor covering. So every time you send us a design request, make sure you let us know. You know, we get the dimensional drawing, but we also need to know what that floor covering is going to be. So that's going to help dictate spacing. Okay, so here kind of gives you the idea of the flooring trends that are out there. And again, this slide's a little older, but it kind of gives you a little of a trend of where most of the floor coverings are being, and that's hardwood. And you can see the hardwood is clearly outclassing the rest of them, followed by tile has dropped down, and carpet is strong. But hardwood is great and growing, and that's perfect for your business and using STEP Warmfloor under hardwood applications, where many contractors, builders might be afraid to put in a hydronic or water tubing system, especially under hardwood floors, because of concerns of premature expansion and contraction of the hardwood, where STEP Warmfloor is going to give you a nice gentle heat that is going to be ideal for hardwood applications. So the market's out there to heat those. Let's jump right into the floor covering. This is, I'm not intended to touch bases in depth on every one because we got so many, we only got so much time. And I think my colleague Andre and I here, I think we're only slated to be here till 8 o'clock, but we certainly could last till midnight on each one of these subjects. But for the sake of your time, we're going to spend just the short hour that we have. But remember, ceramic tile is really it's an excellent absorbent of heat. I mean, basically it'll transfer heat right through. There's not much lateral movement of the heat. That's why that element spacing is very critical, that we maintain 1 to 2.5 inches. We don't want that too far apart where the customer can feel it with their feet, because your feet are very good receptors at detecting temperature. One thing with ceramic tile, always respect the curing times from the manufacturer, whatever thin set they're using. Make sure that if they're saying do not heat the system up for that recommended time, that you adhere to that. And we're always going to tell you about insulating. In tile applications, you typically insulate under concrete applications using pro panel or cork. And if you have spaces where tiles going on a wood subfloor and you have access below that, then we're going to recommend always insulating with fiberglass batting. Now the picture here will give you a kind of a cross-sectional view of the layering of tile applications. You can see where on this application we got a subfloor, and the space is insulated, the element is put on, and then you can show by the picture there, the gentleman is thin setting the element, or the element is down, and then he's thin setting the cement board down on top of it. And just kind of give you a good view, this kind of is, see those little marks there? You might just see where the red arrows I popped on there. That's where the contractor previously set the cement board, and he's marked where the bus braces are. So when he screws this cement board down, he's avoiding that blue chalk line, if you will, to prevent hitting the bus braces down below. So it kind of gives you just a little more information when you really study the picture. And he's just using a 1/4-inch notch trowel, and he's going to lay his next panel down. And typically what guys will do is they'll snap snap a couple nails in it to hold it down and bond it, and then, you know, of course they're going to be screwing it down to industry practices of, I know when I did my floor, it was like every 6 inches that you wanted to screw or nail that down to. But this is a perfect example of tile applications with cement board. And elements can be installed below the cement board or above, and so it's kind of a preference. Think of it below in this application. It kind of acts more as a heat sink too, because you have the layers to go through, the thin set, the cement backer unit, and then the tile. So everything is absorbing that heat, which helps spread it and retain it. There's pros and cons of going below versus above, but I think it's a preference that I know some contractors just feel more comfortable seeing the element above in the wires, but they're not used to dealing with it. When we've done the last couple bath crashers, the tile setter says, well, I really like to be on top of, have the element on top of the cement board. Fair enough. And we worked with them on designing it that way. And whereas some contractors feel very comfortable putting it below, because then they got a nice clean slate to lay their tile. So that's your preference, above or below. Doesn't matter in designing it. But it does, you know, you might look at some ways, you know, below. You may want to consider, you know, dropping the secondary wires below the subfloor if it's accessible. So if you got a heating strip going across, maybe unfinished room down below, you just drop the element wires down below and make connections back to the transformer. We already covered marking the elements to prevent nailing through the bus braids. And one thing too, and we're going to reiterate this throughout this tile section, do not use mastics or glues over the heating elements. And mastics, I mean by, you know, you got adhesives that are out there in a bucket. You might buy them in a 3-gallon or 5-gallon bucket, and basically you just take your trowel, dip them in there, and lay tile. Well, I guess I have not come across one tile contractor in my 8 years of dealing with the STEP Warmfloor product that has used mastics. But there's always people out there, especially the DIY, that are not informed, that believe that mastics is going to be a good bond. And hey, they might be, but most of the professionals out there will use a thin set mortar to bond their tile down and their cement board backer units down to the subfloor, whatever it may be, concrete or wood. The other option would be elements above the cement backer unit, as you can see on the picture here. Now, this could be a tile application. It looks like about a 3-inch spacing, but this probably is going to be in a warmer climate than Minnesota. So we're going to stick to that 1 to 2.5 inches. An option here is that you can recess the element connections into the underlayment if you want to, or you can just drop them right down below the subfloor. So it makes it nice and flat. Now, one thing we get from the tile contractors they like, as opposed to cable systems, now the cable, you know, is strung throughout the entire room. Everywhere that cable runs, that contractor needs to worry about his trowel notching into the sheath of the cable, which could produce a hot spot and potential failure down the road. Think of a STEP Warmfloor. 95% of the floor is completely flat, that you don't have to worry about notching into the element or the bus braid. It's protected. You'd have to really beat it up. Even if you nicked it, it's not going to hurt the performance. And then the bus braid, or the wires, secondary wires that are connected on the ends, that's just, they're probably 3-4 feet along the edge of the wall. So a lot of contractors like the flat element, 3/64 of an inch, to trowel in, thin set, and set in their tile. Again, with this application, do not use mastics or glues over the heating elements. And basically, mastics and glue, it prevents the carbon, that nanotechnology, this carbon, from reacting and colliding to each other and creating that friction, creating that heat. So basically, it kind of smothers that from working. So keep away from mastics and glues, and you're going to have a STEP Warmfloor system that's going to last a lifetime. Another thing too for self-leveling is self-levelers are out there. So a lot of the contractors who put in cable systems have put in self-levelers, and this kind of gives you a little bit of a snapshot of using a vinyl mesh, not metal. Remember, we got a semiconductive heating element, so we're using a vinyl mesh for bonding the self-leveler to the floor. And kind of give you, I got a bullet point there that self-leveler is really not necessary with STEP Warmfloor, and it really isn't. I think more so guys will use this if their floor is really out of level, where it's more than a ½ inch drop or quarter-inch drop, that they want a nice flat floor to lay their tile. But many of the applications we see do not have self-levelers out there. They're typically used on cable applications, because that way then they can totally encapsulate their cable systems in the cement, so the guy above it doesn't nick the cable and have premature failure. So this gives you a good little snapshot of how these systems are put in, and then you can see this guys at the self-leveler put in, and then the washers are there used to give you a height of where the height of that self-leveler needs to be. So another example out there that some guys are just used to self-leveling, hey, by all means, it'll work perfectly with this product. You just got to be careful if you've got some bonding primers that are out there. Check with us to make sure, because there's new products always coming on the market that the manufacturer can never keep on top of all the stuff that has changed or the chemicals. And we just want to make sure that when you're using like a primer, a bonding primer down first, that it's approved by the manufacturer. So just check with us if you're doing some self-leveling applications. Another way is to use Ditra, and Ditra is made by Schluter, and it's really thin. It's 5/16 of an inch thick, and it's basically an uncoupling membrane to prevent the movement of floor, because there's movement in the floor. So this prevents it from moving the tile and preventing premature cracking or micro fissures in the tile. So we're seeing more and more contractors starting to use Ditra out there. And as you can see, I got a snapshot of the floor covering, or I'm sorry, the cross-sectional view of how that looks. And we're always going to have the elements going to be below Ditra, and basically they'll thin set. Incidentally, that the contractor there is lifting up just to ensure he's got proper adhesion down, that he's got good covering down under the Ditra. Now, if he's got areas that he's testing, you do the same thing with tile. You're doing the same thing probably with your cement backer units, that you're making sure you're getting enough bonding of that thin set mortar to hold everything down. So the rigid waterproof membranes like Ditra are a great solution, and use them for an uncoupling membrane. So for electricians, this don't mean nothing, right? But for a floor covering guy, this is right in his wheelhouse today. So you guys probably been waiting for this for quite some time. When's he going to get to that floor covering stuff? Well, this is stuff that you're more familiar than us, but one that Ditra is on the rise here is being used by more and more tile contractors, particularly in the Twin Cities area. Wet locations is a perfect place for putting STEP Warmfloor in. In fact, the last bath crashes job that we were working with the contractor on is that they put STEP Warmfloor in the shower. Just make sure that if you're doing these systems, that a waterproof membrane must be installed over the heating element. And we just want to protect, even though we're at low voltage, we want to prevent any sneak current that might transfer down through a cracked grout or something that could hit the element. So you want to prevent that by having a waterproof membrane. There's liquid ones out there, like RedGuard is an approved product out there, and then some Curdy as a membrane out there can be used as well. So keep those in mind, those two things, and over the top of the heating element. And you can see by the picture, he's already done the seated bench up top where the heating elements were. And a tech tip there for wiring is make sure that the wet location of the shower area, have that wired separately from the main elements in the bathroom. That way, if for some reason the liquid or the membrane was perforated, that you wouldn't get water leaking onto the heating element that can cause a little sneak current and a little tingle in the shower. And that way you can disconnect that shower away from the heating elements that are doing most of the heating in the bathroom. So have them wired separately back to the transformer is what I'm trying to tell you. So it kind of gives you another here. Here's actually that show from Bath Crashers. This is unique, and you can see these elements here are reconnected and they're wired separately here. If you can see my mouse run across here, versus the ones in the shower are all interconnected. You can see the wires. I wish I could be able to zoom it up, but basically the element secondary wires, low voltage coming in on this side, going to this side, coming out and into here, and then you can see the wires running up the side to heat that heated bench, and you can't quite see the ones on the back where your back would be. So this is just a nice added feature that the homeowner wanted, and what was unique about this is that notice the opening of the floor drain, that we just cut basically some ribbons out of the heating element, but never jeopardizes the bus braids. So that's a perfect way to heat on all sides of there where your feet are going to be standing. So just another way to show you the performance of STEP Warmfloor is that we can cut out the middle sides of it. The product is still going to continue that 24 volts to heat this entire shower up beautifully. So resilient and vinyl floorings out there. Typically we're going to follow that of wood floors, which I'm going to cover here shortly, and that's going to be about an average spacing of 3 to 5 inches. And one thing you got to remember with resilient, because they get glued down, you do not want any glue or adhesives on top of the heating elements. So your cross-sectional view down below there is going to be basically you have your wood subfloor, and then your heating element would be installed, stapled down, or use some approved tape to secure to the subfloor. And then you would lay down your underlayment like birch wood. Some guys, birch wood is one that's more common that guys will use in wet areas like a bathroom. So, and then that gets nailed down with a pneumatic nailer to secure it, and then you would glue down your resilient or vinyl floor down to that underlayment. That way we have no contact between the glue and the heating element. So it's a perfect way, and we're seeing a little bit more increase in vinyl application resilient just because of the fast-growing LVT market. So low maintenance, long life cycle cost, low profile, and you can get these to look just like tile. So we're seeing more and more people put those in. Just be careful that, you know, glue, heat, and plastics don't get along, so make sure you have that underlayment between there, that 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch birchwood. And here it gives you maybe a little bit better picture of the cross-sectional view of it. But it's something out there that you can install under vinyl floors where cable systems certainly aren't, without self-leveling, which adds cost and height. And when you're adding height in a bathroom or any location, that gets to be a problem with transitions between unlike flooring. So less height is better, and you're going to have the architect and the builder will like it too. Here's just shows the birchwood being installed over it. Now that the gentleman there is just marking out where the bus braids are, so when he nails this down with his pneumatic nailer or screw gun, that he's going to prevent that from hitting that bus braid. And also you can show that they've taken the element and stripped it down and recessed the holes down below. Now this is a perfect way, if you have access down below, to drop the wires. Perhaps a transformer is located right below this room. But it's a perfect installation to show how you can install the system easily. One thing is probably, you know, you're seeing here, maybe the void could have been, maybe there could have been an element installed a little bit longer and easier transition. What I like to see here is just a nice, he could have got an element in here this way. Maybe you should have put it one little crossed here. So just little things. We're just trying to provide utmost performance for the customer. Okay, let's get into the carpet applications. And typical spacing is about 5 to 7 inches, and a lot of it's 5 that we have systems designed for. The carpet is going to be probably your #1 seller to use in STEP Warmfloor because it offers the least cost per square foot because the spacing is farther apart than that of tile for the same square footage or carpet. So those things with carpet, keep in mind that there's a lot of business out there, especially for basement applications where you want to increase performance of comfort levels of the house. Carpet is, you want to be below an R value of 2.5 between the carpet and pad. You definitely want to insulate, and we talked about the Cerazorb or Cork products would be great systems to insulate that part. Maybe that was a concrete slab. So we got concrete, maybe some Cerazorb or Cork, then the heating element. And the heating element typically would get holded in place with some approved tape. And we'll talk about that during the installation and wiring here on our next webinar. One thing with carpet is you got to use a carpet pad, and carpet pads can be an insulator. So you got to be careful that not every carpet pad is the same. We strongly recommend you to use an approved carpet pad. I got some coming up here called STEP Warmfloor, I'm sorry, Healthier Choice and Sponge Cushion. Them are recommended pads that are going to give you great performance with the heating system, but they also have other benefits to them. Carpet pad acts as a retainer, so it helps hold that heat and spread that heat through between the spacing of the heating elements. We're going to recommend you putting a commercial carpet pad down as opposed to residential, just because it'll provide you longer life and performance of your carpet, but also help provide the heat to transfer rate directly through the carpet and carpet pad. So those are the 2 carpet pads that we recommend. There's other ones out there, but we can start with that one. One thing we want to tell you to avoid is one called Leggett and Platt. Leggett and Platt has certain chemicals that are used that can have some adverse effects on the STEP Warmfloor heating element. So stick with Healthy Choice and Sponge Cushion, and you're going to have a great system for your customer. Now carpet pads, like I said, they're not all the same. You want to stay away from rebonds or bonded urethane pads because they have a high R value. So it doesn't matter what system you have, if you have STEP Warmfloor, if you have a radiant floor hydronic tubing, water tubing system, you want to stay away from these type of carpet pads because they will only inhibit that heat from transferring through the carpet where the customer or the homeowner can feel it. So stay away from those, and your rebonds are going to be ones that you're kind of confetti type where they're all granulated together and glued, and that air pocket prevents heat from transferring through. So stick with those other carpet pads, and you're going to have systems that are antimicrobial. They won't off-gas with heating system under there. You don't want them to off-gas into the home. So those 2 carpet pad manufacturers are ideal for carpet applications with STEP Warmfloor. So avoid adhesives with glue downs as well. You know, some guys will, instead of stretching carpet pads, they'll put a glue down. Them are the ones you need to know what's going over it. How are you going to adhere this? Is it going to be a stretch-in carpet pad? No problem. If it's going to be adhesives, we need to talk about how the application process has got to change because you're going to have to put something to prevent that heating element from touching the glue. And one way to do that is you can encapsulate the heating element with like a lightweight concrete, a self-leveler, or a skim coat. That way you don't have direct contacts with gluing that down. So some carpet pad tips and carpet applications that you need to be aware of. So carpet pads have different insulation values, and the Healthier Choice carpet pad shows you it's antimicrobial, it's got a very long performance life, low emissions, so best for indoor air quality, which is important for a home out there. And because you got little kids that are going to enjoy your STEP Warmfloor system, and they're going to be on the ground right on the carpet pad. So it's best to have a great quality, low emission type of carpet pad for the homeowner. And just if you get a chance, and I'm up against the gun on time, but you have different insulation values, and different thicknesses of the pad will correspond to different R values. So sometimes an R value, a thicker pad is great, but gives you a higher R value, which is tougher to transfer heat through. This kind of gives you a little cross-sectional view of a carpet pad, and the actual heating element is in this application. This is a home down in Lake Minnetonka area here outside the Twin Cities area. But here you got your insulation, you got a concrete slab, and you're going to have your maybe some Cerazorb or Pro Panel or cork laid down, followed by the element, a proper carpet cushion again, and then a stretched in carpet. So gives you kind of good layering of the application. Like I said, there's so much to cover here in such a short time that I really have to run through these quickly so we can get to the question and answer. But laminate wood floors, typically about 3 to 5 inch spacing. You always want to have the element installed perpendicular to the wood planking direction. So let us know which way the flooring guy is going to put his planking in, and we'll design the element to run perpendicular. That way, when your planking lines up, that the planking never falls really into the spacing of the heating element. That way you get a nice flat floor. It'll install real nice for you too. So some systems will have sound control pads. You just want to make sure, I kind of call them the clip-clop pad. If they're insulated, make sure you put the element over the top. And if they're a low insulated, by all means, you'll tell that just by looking at them. Some of them are very, very thin. And if it's got a low insulated pad, then you can certainly install the pad over the heating element. But incidentally, the STEP Warmfloor acts as a sound barrier already, because it's 3/64 of an inch thick, and then it's got the spacing in between, and then you got the spacing of the basically in between the element itself. So it kind of acts as a sound deadener itself. Hardwood floors, and this is where a growing application that we see here for Heat My Floors is we get a lot of calls with guys who've done wood floor applications with STEP Warmfloor, and now they got other clients that are clamoring for this type of application, because a lot of other systems, hydronics, you have some cautions that you got some concerns of too high temperatures over that the tubing could be over the wood floor that can cause premature cupping and warping. So the nice thing with wood floors is STEP Warmfloor is going to be limited to 82 degrees, and we're having we don't want that floor temperature to be above 85 degrees. So that's going to be perfect for wood floor applications. One thing we want to recommend to you is that when you do first turn on the system, that you give it incremental changes, temperature changes. Don't turn it up to 70-some degrees right away. Get that acclimate, everything's got to acclimate, of course, to the wood. It's got to acclimate to the indoor moisture environment. But when you first turn on the system, make sure you bring it up nice and slow over time. And again, you're going to install the element perpendicular to the direction of the planking, just like we have in the laminate floor. It kind of gives you a better picture here. Here we're recommending, and this is nothing new for flooring guy, but for a guy that's a concrete guy, he's not understanding, but basically, a electrician, and you got wood planking, really needs to acclimate into the indoor humidity level. So they recommend that sitting in the home for 7 to 10 days prior to installation. Quarter sawn planking is better for a radiant floor system than plain sawn, so more forgiving of temperature. You want to avoid temperature swings, let the thermostat do its job. It has a sensor, but the element acts as a sensor too. Remember, we're never going to get above that 82-degree temperature that is going to cause this floor to cup or warp. And so wood flooring, perfect, many applications that are out there for your customer. Some installation tips, and I'm running really low on time here too, is you can use a router to recess the wires through the floor. Perhaps it was a wood floor that didn't have a finished or unfinished space below it. Where I've seen guys use rotor zips or basically a router to insert the wires or into the floor till they can lay flat. So that's going to help installation. I could cover this a lot more in details, but we better leave room here for question and answers. One thing too is on installation, you know, if you're using make sure you mark your bus braids where they are too, especially if you're using a felt, not necessarily a felt paper, but a paper over the top of the element for the wood floor. So you may want to mark where those bus braids are, prevent nailing through them. I'm going to skip here. We're going to go to staple applications because there's many out there that you can find the STEP Warmfloor is going to work for. It's very important that you add insulation underneath these because we want that heat, again, directed upward and not downward. And one thing is that you're going to have 16.5 inch on center or 14-inch spacing. That's where you'd use one heating element versus a joist spacing of like floor trusses or 23.5 inches. So then you'd use two 9-inch elements. Now we haven't introduced the 9-inch element, but it's out there for these applications, and it's going to have the same temperature of that 84 degrees that we're going to transfer that heat through that subfloor and through that floor covering above. We're going to recommend fail-safe wiring. Too much to cover right now, but I'll cover that on the installation wiring controls. Installation in slab concrete, well, we've seen this on the previous application slides, and the key here is to insulate. Again, I know we've driven that point home, but here's it shows you that at home in Minneapolis where they have polystyrene down, and then the STEP Warmfloor is installed on top of it. So it's basically the same application installation as a water tubing type of installation. So STEP Warmfloor is going to work perfectly for that. So the system is easy for you to design. Many benefits that versus other systems. You know, minimal floor buildup. You can go under any floor covering like we covered there. There's a little cautions that you need to be aware of, but make sure you communicate that to us or through the manufacturer, to your local distributor. We're going to understand that. We're going to design that system, but we need that information so we can make it a successful installation for you. I'm not going to cover the installation video over time. I think I'll get on this, and this is one provided by the manufacturers. There's no sound to this, but in the next webinar, I'll kind of tease you with this. Now you're going to have to come back and listen to the fourth webinar here on installation and wiring, which segues perfectly into the schedule here. So remind you next, I'm sorry, 2 weeks, it's actually December 11th from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be covering installation, placement of the transformers and controls and thermostats. Do you need a thermostat? Do I need a thermostat for a bathroom? Do I need a floor sensor? Why I need a floor sensor? How to wire these, cut the element. We're going to cover all that in the next webinar. So again, thank you. I know this is a lot to throw at you, and because there's so many applications out there, so many floor coverings that you can grow your business by putting the product underneath tile, carpet, wood, vinyl. Use it as a floor heating system, floor warming. Use it as a primary heat system. So just because somebody says they got a wood floor and you can't use STEP Warm or can't use radiant floor, well, now you have a product there that can be applied to that application and provide that homeowners with energy efficiency and long-lasting comfort for many years. So I'm going to get to the question and answer side of this, and I know we only got about 5 minutes to go, but we've had a few of them that come in, and I'll kind of go over some of these with you given the time. But one of the questions was, well, give me an example where insulation may not be needed. And I can only think really, we're going to always recommend it on every one, but one that you may not be as critical on is a basement that's completely below grade. Because now you have the earth as an insulator, you have the walls and ceiling, so that heat really is not going to escape out and down because it lacks the thermal punch at 82 degrees or 84 degrees, depending on the heating element that you're going to use or we're going to design for, that it's going to be contained within that space. So below grade applications that are completely, it's not as critical. But if you can put it in, and then we're going to suggest you do so. We're going to, we're always going to design it that it gets installed with insulation. So maybe if it's a slab on grade or a walkout, now that's where insulation really plays a critical role in performance of the product. Second question here is, any recommendations for area rugs on a wood floor with STEP Warmfloor installed under a 3/4 inch thick solid wood floor? Now, no, you can certainly put area rugs over the top of your hardwood floors. It's not going to have any effect with the STEP Warmfloor. In fact, the STEP Warmfloor is going to work less in that, let's say, square inch area of the area rug, because it's going to come up to temperature very quickly, and because you're trapping the heat. So once it comes up to temperature at 82 degrees, it's going to self-regulate underneath that wood floor. So it's trapping the heat, so you're going to use less energy there as opposed to an area where the area rug isn't. That's when that heat is going to transfer through that wood subfloor, through that 3/4 inch solid wood floor and into the home. So area rugs, no problems on putting on the top of the wood floors with STEP Warmfloor. Another question I got is, can my contractor use any cement backer board? And in fact, you really can. I mean, there's three main ones I know of, and that's Hardy Backer, Durarock, and Wonderboard. Them are the three main players that are out there, and basically they're all 1/4 inch cement boards, and each one may claim one's better than the other, but all three of those are going to work perfectly with STEP Warmfloor. What floor covering? Here's the third question. What floor covering do you sell the most STEP Warmfloor systems, and why? And well, on the previous webinars, I kind of touched, it is carpet by far. You'd think it'd be tile because there's more tile applications of cold tile. People want to warm it, but actually we have the most success in selling for applications in a basement with carpet. And they're going to be your least cost per square foot to put in because your spacing is farther apart. So I kind of rank it as probably, my colleagues might disagree with me, but my expertise on this is typically it's been carpet, wood, tile, and vinyl in order. So carpet outsells the tile applications, and because I think tile, you got more competition with cable systems, and if they don't know nothing about STEP Warmfloor, well, they're just going to think that tile and cable systems go together. But tile and STEP Warmfloor is a perfect match. So will a room painted with Cool Coat ceramic radiant paint make the room even more energy efficient? Well, Jim, thanks for your question. And I'm not aware of Cool Coat ceramic radiant paint. I guess I couldn't even answer your question, but you know what? I like these type of questions because that gives me some research I'm going to have to do and personally get back to you. So if you could, you certainly can give me your emails, pop me an email. I don't have your, I can get your email somewhere here from Andrea here. And I'll do some research on that. I know nothing about that, so I'm sorry I can't answer your question. Another question here for the last minute is the Cerazorb and Pro Panel products that you have are interesting. Can they be purchased through Heat My Floors? And I said, yes, they can, absolutely. One situation that it might be tougher is shipping because UPS, they're oversized with 4x4 or 3x5 panels. So it might be costly to ship that. So maybe you'd work, we can work with the manufacturers of those products that you can find a local distributor around there. But if you're in the Minnesota area or particularly really close, it's easier to get those products from us. But there's applications out there that you can get. And I got a few more, but I frankly cannot take any more of your time. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to end up on time, and join us for the next webinar. We appreciate your time here tonight, and good night.